But how do you find your true love, or your soulmate, or your twin flame, or your other half? How do you find your ideal wife or husband? Well, in today's world, it's almost impossible because all the secret societies believe in separating you from your true love. They want to separate every Adam from his Eve, and they all do so using different excuses. They may even pretend like they want you to find your true love, but they all use deceptive excuses, like saying that your soulmate has changed, or by telling you that they know who your soulmate is and that the person that you actually love isn't the one that you're supposed to marry. The Jewish, the Taoist, and the Satanic secret societies are all serving Satan as far as love and marriage are concerned. So none of the governments and secret societies of today will ever allow you to marry your ideal wife or husband. So in today's world, it is actually better not to get married at all. I'm sure many Muslims will now be surprised because your scholars and imams have always encouraged you to get married no matter what. Some even support forced marriages, and others encourage you to marry people that you don't even like. But I'm going to show you a hadith that most government-controlled scholars will never even mention. And that's why I'm sure most of you have never heard it. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "When the year 180 arrives, I permit my nation to abstain from marriage and to resort to solitary life on the mountain tops." There's also another similar hadith mentioned in the Ihya, which says the best Muslims will be those who never get married. So why is it that it is permissible and even recommended for Muslims to avoid marriage after the year 180 Hijri of the Hijri calendar? Well, that was when the Bani Abbas came to power, and the Bani Abbas came to power with the help of the Jewish Shias. Since then, the Muslim Ummah has been dominated by Munafiq scholars, many of whom are secretly Jewish rabbis. They brought in a lot of Jewish laws into Islam, and they made the haram halal and they made the halal haram, and ordered people to become their muqalladeen, or their blind followers. Since then, Muslims have gone backwards militarily, socially, scientifically, and in every other way because we became slaves of the Jewish rabbis without even realizing it. Anyone who questioned them was silenced and ordered to do taqleed, which means to blindly follow the clergy even if they contradict the Quran. Some Muslims, like the historian Imam Tabari, even tried to expose these Jews. Imam Tabari narrated in the history of Tabari that the Jews had created the Shia sect, and he was murdered after compiling his book. Tabari was narrating from the books of Saif ibn Umar, who was an earlier historian. And Saif ibn Umar's books were censored and destroyed, and they actually no longer exist today. We no longer have the books of Saif ibn Umar. We just have what Imam Tabari narrated from people who had read Saif ibn Umar's book. You see, the Jews and the Satanists created the Shia sect, and then they infiltrated the Sunnis by allying with the Bani Abbas. The rise of the Bani Abbas with the help of the Shias was the Shia-Sunni alliance, which many munafiqeen today are still calling for. Anyway, because of the fact that our lives have been controlled by the secret societies since the year 180, it is no longer possible for us to have a good Muslim life or to have an ideal marriage. Hence, the only way you can marry the one you truly love is if you either succeed in overthrowing these satanic secret societies and their governments, or if you get killed in the process and go to paradise. If you successfully destroy the current system and establish a real caliphate that is independent from all the secret societies and sects, only then will you be free to marry who you really want, and the Satanists and the Jews will no longer have the power to prevent you. And of course, this is not just about marriage, this is about life in general. You will be able to live as you truly want. And if you get killed while trying to overthrow the current system, then you will definitely end up marrying your true love, because you will be together forever in paradise. In other words, your real lives are waiting for you in paradise, including the one who is on earth, because Allah will give you whatever you want in paradise. So she has to already be in paradise, because once you get there, you will have whatever you want. So this means that she is already there. So the only logical conclusion is that your real life in this world is already in paradise simultaneously. She is both in paradise and on earth at the same time, and she is only on earth in order to test you. Now that you understand what is really going on in this world, you can understand the very beginning of Final Fantasy VIII. So the beginning of the game is actually telling you one of the biggest secrets about life. However, as with everything else, later in the game, this is given an entirely different meaning. It's later explained that she will be waiting for you in the back of Idia's house. And Idia is the sorceress who at that point in the game has become a good sorceress. So true love is now associated with sorcery, as Rinoa and Idia are both sorceresses. So the game first tells you an amazing truth at the very beginning, but later gives you a false interpretation of it. As for the Crusader Cypher, whom I earlier connected to George Bush and the Templars, well, he's your enemy in most of the game, but at the end he becomes a good guy. So in other words, George Bush becomes a good guy in the end, and that's actually what the Illuminati were planning with George Bush. We were actually supposed to see Bush as a good guy in the end, which is why near the end of his presidency, Bush started shaking hands with Obama, back when Obama was popular, and with the communist Chinese, thus combining yin and yang, which is the Kabbalist ideology. Bush also shook hands openly with the Shia cleric Abdul Aziz Hakim. Normally, American presidents pretend to be against the Shia clerics, especially those Shia clerics who are linked to the government of Iran, like the Hakim family. And yet, despite that, Bush and Hakim openly announced their alliance. What the Illuminati planned was for us to see Bush as a closed-minded religious conservative who slowly evolved into a mature and understanding person. Through him, they sought to initiate the Christian conservatives slowly into their version of the yin and yang philosophy. The Kabbalist Jews and the Kabbalist Satanists want people to embrace opposing religions and philosophies, and then to mix them together. Communism with capitalism, Shiism with Zionism, Democrat with Republican, prostitution with homosexuality, Luciferianism with the Satanism, and so on. The deception is that Satan already controls both ideologies that the Illuminati want you to combine. So you'd really be combining evil with evil. Interestingly, there was a TV series about George Bush in 2001 called That's My Bush. At the end of the episode of this TV series, it was routine for the actor playing George Bush to learn his lesson and realize his mistakes.
Killing is wrong, Laura. Doesn't matter if they're murderers or parasites or even French. It's wrong to take a life.
Doesn't matter, 'cause I'm not putting that bootleg cable device back on my TV anyway. Oh! Because stealing from huge corporations is still stealing. And I was wrong to ever think otherwise.
Good for you, George.
Not only that, I'm getting rid of the entire SDI system.
Oh!
Puts too much power in the hands of the wrong people, namely me.
You yourself knew that wasn't true.
I know. I've changed.
Yeah, you've changed. But I like the new George. He's grown up, matured. A little bit. Thinks about consequences. I like who you've become, George.
You see, Bush was supposed to change and the conservatives were supposed to change with him. And then Obama was supposed to bring change. However, these plans didn't work very well on most people. And the main reason why was that America's plans for Iraq were totally ruined I explained about this on Islamicity Forum in an article titled "The Real Reason Why America Invaded Iraq," which I wrote in 2007. There I explained that America planned to first invade Iraq and then have a fake war with the Shias, which would result in the Shias defeating the American occupation forces. In other words, just like the fake wars in Lebanon between the Shias and Israel, as I explained on my other videos. After the fake defeat of the American occupation forces, George Bush would come to the realization that he was wrong to fight against the Shias, and he would then start having open relations with the Shias. Since the Shias would have been portrayed as the ones who saved Iraq, no one could then accuse them of being agents of America. And after forming an alliance, America and Iran would continue their wars against the Sunnis together. However, all these plans were ruined because real Islamic resistance groups appeared in Iraq who had real battles against the American occupation forces and their Shia allies. And they exposed the truth that the Shias were helping the American occupation forces and that Iran is really America's puppet in the region. Despite all of that, the Illuminati decided to go along with their plans anyway. They still reported on the media that the resistance was mostly Shia and that Iran was supposedly working against America and Israel. They made up fake stories about Iran and America fighting each other over the nuclear issue and other fake stories and fake conflicts in order to distract people from the real truth, which was that Iran was helping the American occupation forces in both Afghanistan and Iraq. So they told their version of history despite all the facts. But because what they reported on their news channels was so different from the truth, they couldn't fool as many people as they wanted to. This was also because independent researchers and some non-Satanist organizations revealed some truth, or at least told a different version of events on the internet to the public. Because of this, the Illuminati slowed down their plans for George Bush and are now slowly trying to appeal to the conspiracy theorists using disinformation agents who are telling people that Fox News, for example, is independent from the government. Of course, nothing can be further from the truth, but they want to bring the conspiracy theorists and truth seekers under the control of the neocons and brainwash the remaining people who have not yet been completely brainwashed. This is why recently they had this interview with George Bush.
So many Americans, the terrorism in Boston.
Yeah.
Many people have wondered if it took you right back to 9/11 when you heard it.
Well, at first, I was deeply concerned that there might have been a organized plot. I don't know all the facts. I don't think we all know all the facts, but I was deeply concerned that this could have been, another organized, highly organized attack on the country. And it still may be. I don't know.
Remember that George Bush is an actor. He is actually the same person as the Hollywood actor known as James Brolin. So in other words, this entire interview was scripted. What they were trying to do with this interview was to make it seem like George Bush wants to tell people the truth about 9/11 and the Boston bombings, and that he wants to let people know that these are conspiracies, but that he's afraid of saying it. That's why he says that the attack was a consp and then stops. You see, it's very important for the Illuminati to portray George Bush as an innocent and genuine person who eventually becomes a good guy. This is the role he was always supposed to play. His alliance with communist China and the Shias is supposed to be seen as a good thing. In other words, they want us to think